Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Chiefs shut down the Washington Commanders on Monday night. Game 3 of the World Series brought us a thriller that needed extra baseball to decide, and it's only a matter of time before Victor Wemb takes over the NBA. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Patrick Mahomes didn't have his best game, but the Chiefs still found a way to pull out a victory over the Commanders. Locked On Chiefs host Ryan Tracy and Chris Clark react to the gutsy dub.
Well, I didn't think they were necessarily that flat. It was just, two particular plays that killed him. One, obviously, Travis Kelce had the bobble that turns into an interception. At least it didn't cost him this time as much as it did against the Eagles. But, Mahomes has 4 interceptions now on the season, and 2 of them are straight off the hands of Travis Kelce. So I think that's got to be a little bit frustrating. But Mahomes kind of downplayed it. Kelce did not talk to us after the game. I know he talked to Scott Van Pelt. I have not heard what he said there yet. So maybe he gave all the answers there. And then, Mahomes and Hollywood Brown had a moment where they just were not quite on the same page as far as the throw goes. And Marcus Lattimore was in great position to make an interception. Those 2 turnovers were huge. And the Chiefs got the stops that they at least needed. But I thought both, offenses in particular were a little sloppy, at least in the first half. I mean, you had Washington had a couple of drives where they turned over the ball on downs. The Chiefs had the drives where they turned the ball over on interceptions. Once the Chiefs seemed to get that out of their system, though, I mean, they got the score in the second quarter to kind of get things going. And then in the second half, obviously, it was all Chiefs.
Yeah, and you look at that and you look at how this game played out. It was a tale of 2 halves. And the big thing that stood out to me, as you said, the interceptions, stuff that you can't have happen. Travis Kelce, don't know what you really say about that other than he can't have the ball continue to bounce off his hands and turn the ball over. You're right, though, Matt. It wasn't as big of a deal as the one against Philadelphia where they ended up taking advantage of it. But those are the types of plays that against better teams will get you beat. And to me, it looked like, at least in the first half, this was a team that wasn't focused and came out. I don't know that I would say without energy. They just didn't look focused. They didn't look like they were locked on and ready to go in this game. And it was one of those things where once they figured out what to do and made a couple of adjustments, the offense clicked. I mean, 4 touchdown drives of close to over 70 yards plus. I think one was 65, the 3 more of over 70. I mean, just a completely different game in the second half than it was the first.
Yeah, 4 touchdown drives and 5 drives overall between, I think, at the end of the second quarter and the beginning of the third. And, once again, I mean, Chiefs, they scored more points. They kind of called off the dogs a little bit and just took things a little bit easy in the second half. And in the fourth quarter, didn't bend the backups really, especially on offense. They really never did that. They did put the backups on defense. So that kind of called it off. But again, I mean, you get a 28-7 win. I don't know how you really say that, they didn't come out with enough energy or they didn't have enough focus. They still won this game. I think, once again, you have 2 plays that, one, give up to Lattimore. He made a good play. It wasn't a great throw. It wasn't a great, job of Hollywood defending the ball and even trying to knock it away. And again, I mean, Kelce, hey, the rest of the game outweighed that one drop and that one bobble that turned into the turnover, and obviously let you hurt yourself. But it's hard to find a reason to be disappointed with me in a 28-7 win, even if it is against the 500-ish team with a backup quarterback.
If I did anything wrong at all, Matt, is I called the game 27-17 Chiefs, and I gave the Commanders too much credit. One of those things is because I thought they'd be able to run the ball better. I thought they would attack better. They ended up with Bill with 2.8 yards a carry. Mariota was their leading rusher, and not only yardage but average. That was surprising to me. Not that I should be shocked because this defense has been able to pull themselves up by their bootstraps all season long. And those interceptions put them into that spotlight. And they were Johnny on the spot and responded. I thought like the defense in terms of its coming together and being prepared to deal with uncertainty certainly set that apart today in the first half. Am I wrong?
I know, I don't think you are wrong. And, again, I mean, this has been a strength of this defense now for a while. And their calling card is that the first thing that they want to do is they want to shut down the opposition's run game. I mean, there's a reason why they've been calling it now for a few years, kill the engine. And, we even got some stories the last couple of weeks from Joe Colin and the rest of the staff about how that's how they begin their week, is they begin with the run game meetings and how they're going to stop run that week. So it's a consistent storyline with this team that they stop the run. The one thing that I thought that was going to be interesting today is that, Mariota came into this game averaging 9.4 yards a carry and, only had 10 carries on the season in his 2 starts, but that was enough. And they came out with designed runs specifically to try and get Mariota going. And the Chiefs quickly shut down with bringing in Leo Chenal again as a spy. That worked pretty effectively. And, once they kind of shut down the run game and got that going, it really didn't take a whole lot more to shut down the passing game, because even though Washington had back, their 2 best receivers in McLaurin and Debo, they never were really able to become multidimensional. And the Chiefs, obviously, I think they got some help from the play calling. I mean, Washington decided to go for it in a couple of positions rather than take some points, and that probably helped the Chiefs a little bit. I don't think it was the deciding factor in this game, but those 4th down stops that they got in the first half were pretty critical.
Stay up to date all year on the Kansas City Chiefs by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Chiefs on your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Blue Jays came to play in Game 3. We needed extra innings to decide this instant classic. Before we get to that, the Vikings are turning back to J.J. McCarthy. The NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I like to bet, whether it's player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Vikings quarterback Carson Wentz will undergo season-ending surgery, which means the rest of the season lies on J.J. McCarthy's shoulders.
Well, that was an entire ass beating. The Vikings might be a bottom 5 team in this league. They dropped one 34-10 on the West Coast here. Unless something happens in the last 2 minutes here, I'm at SoFi Stadium watching my favorite team get blown to bits for the second time this season in a primetime spot. This is not good enough. And I think the Vikings have a mini bye here where they have to go in and ask some really serious questions about if they have the right people in the right jobs. I wouldn't be surprised if the head rolled after this one. This is a really rough 5-day stretch for the Vikings. I know they're on the road in the West Coast. I know it's a night game. I know it's weird. They just went to London. The schedule is tough. But you can't no-show like this as many times as they have. They haven't scored a first-half touchdown since week 3. They have 1 turnover since week 3. The only touchdown they got in this game was a gift based off of 2 defensive penalties. It's terrible. Get him out of here.
Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain is expected to be out for weeks.
The Denver Broncos got some good news and some bad news regarding Patrick Surtain the second here. Surtain left, obviously, Sunday's game with a shoulder injury. He had an MRI, and it turns out it's not a shoulder, it's a pec strain, and he is considered week to week here. He is expected to miss at least a couple of games here for the Broncos. He could land on short-term injured reserve, which would mean he'd be out a minimum of 4 weeks. The Broncos' next 3 weeks feature a game this Sunday on the road against the Houston Texans, a Thursday night matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders, and then a matchup with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. That is a game where he could potentially return, but the Broncos may evaluate that, as I said, week to week, evaluate where he's at. Worst case scenario, he ends up on short-term IR. That leads into the Broncos bye week, and he'd be expected to make his return week 13 when the team comes out of their bye week against Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football. For more, make sure you tune in to Locked On Broncos.
The Thunder stifled Cooper Flagg and the Mavs.
Hey, you know what? I'll take that. I'll take that comeback attempt from the Dallas Mavericks. In the third quarter of this game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, it looked like everything was just doom and gloom. They were down by 20. Mavs couldn't score. It just looked like this OKC defense was going to take over. The Mavs were not going to be able to get anything going against them. And then all of a sudden, they mounted this comeback. OKC hit 90 points with like 10-25 left in the fourth quarter, and they stayed there. The Mavs defense kind of held them. The Thunder's offense did kind of get turned off too on their own, but the Mavs were able to mount this comeback, got it to within 3, got a couple of possessions here at the end of the game, and they could have almost got this game and pulled it away. So you feel okay about that. Still some issues really to care about. The Mavs were missing Derek Lively in this one, and Cooper Flagg struggled in this one because he got a stinger early on his arm. He was having heat on it for most of the game while he was sitting on the bench, and then when he was in, looked like he was really struggling against Case and Wallace and some of this defense as well. Some of the physicality from this OKC team that's stuff he's going to struggle with. But with Lively out, obviously no Gafford, just Anthony Davis. The Mavs struggled in the rebounding department, almost got out-rebounded by 20 in this game. The Mavs still have not shot over 40% this season, 38%, just under 38% shooting from the field for the Mavericks. So still not really generating offense in the way that you want to, although it was OKC, so you understand that part of it. Jaden Hardy, a little bit of a revelation for the Mavericks. He was in there in closing minutes for the Mavs. He just is not afraid of anything, of any moment, and that's why Jason Kidd put him in there. They needed somebody that's not afraid, that's willing to take some shots, willing to take some risks, because this Mavericks team needs some of that in the lineup. That's why D'Angelo Russell and Jaden Hardy are getting minutes. The Mavs need more of it from some of their other guys.
And the Celtics topped Zion and the Pelicans.
First win of the season for the Boston Celtics. Who cares if Zion Williamson didn't play? Celtics needed this one, and they got it because they finally won the margins. I'm John Corrales from the Locked On Celtics podcast. It was still close. It was a 5-point game early in the fourth quarter, but then a 25-4 run. Anthony Simons went nuclear, 25 points. The Celtics got great performances from Neemias Queta, from surprise starter Josh Minott. Derek White played really well. Peyton Pritchard was great. Even though the shots still didn't fall, the Celtics did enough. They won the margins that they had been losing. They had more points in the paint. They had more second chance points, which is a reversal. They had more fast break points. They played a similar style as we've been used to seeing, but they were executing better. The opponent probably played into this. As I've said from the beginning of the season, they're not good enough to beat the good teams. They're good enough to beat the bad teams, and a shorthanded Pelicans team is a bad team. So this is what the Celtics should be doing to these teams. This puts the Celtics kind of in that 500 team range, but for now, it's their first win of the season, and they will take it.
The LA Dodgers found a way in extras after a tough battle with the Blue Jays in Game 3. Locked On Dodgers postcast host Pete Fox reacted to the clutch win.
Don't remember it all that well, but I do remember watching. This one felt longer. This one felt like more of a slog because the Dodgers really, honestly, if you want the truth from me right now, I think did not deserve to win this game. They squandered so many freaking opportunities early in the game. But how about Will Klein? Will freaking Klein is a stud. I agree with Boogie 23er. Freddie is a legend. And Shohei is inevitable. Well said, Boogie. I think we could just call it a night right there. That's all we need. That summed up everything. I can sit here and bitch about the opportunities that the Dodgers missed. Teoscar Hernandez, lazy in right field. Bad pitching decision to bring in, what's his name? Blake Trinan. If Blake Trinan makes better pitches, the Dodgers are out of this game in 9. If Teoscar Hernandez can throw out fat Teoscar or fat Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he's not fat, but he's not fast. Let's be honest. He's slow. Okay. If he can throw him out from first base, game over. And there's at least 2 or 3 more squandered opportunities. Alex Call just hit a freaking fly ball. How many pop-ups? How many pop-ups did we have to endure Somebody flatten out your bat and put the ball in play. I know a pop-up is putting the ball in play, but wow, that was dreadful. But Shohei Ohtani, holy cow. I mean, tonight he showed up. I know he showed up in game 4 against the Milwaukee Brewers, something we've never seen before. 3 home runs in 10 Ks on the mound. But tonight, in high leverage situations, yeah, he got walked. Was it 4 times or 5 times? 9 times on base, which ties the Major League Baseball record. 5 walks, 4 intentionally, and the last one was pretty much intentional. But 4 hits, 3 runs scored, 3 RBI, 2 home runs. That home run in the, what was it? When did he hit the first? It's so long ago. I mean, this feels like it was literally 2 games, but it feels like 2 days. The home run from Ohtani in the 7th was such a nice piece of hitting. And in the 5th, when he doubled to left center on a 3-2 count, that was the best piece of hitting I've seen from Shohei Ohtani in a long, long time. Waited on the ball, let the ball travel, kept the front side closed, and hit it the other way. And Mookie came up and popped up weakly to left. Freddie misses a cutter, fouls it off, then gets a sweeper over the middle, and he pulls it inside down the bag to right field. Freddie had such a nice day. And he said when the game was over, I did catch his comments with Ken Rosenthal, that in extra innings, his swing was getting better, and he almost hit one out earlier. So it really felt like it was going to be him or Will Smith, because those 2 guys both had really good opportunities. Teoscar had a really good opportunity. I would have loved to see any of those guys do it. But, ultimately, I feel like this was Freddie's game, right? This is where Freddie is at his best. This is where he shines. This is where he just soaks up the moment. But I was waiting for him to run over to the fence like he did last year in game 1 against the Yankees and grab the netting and scream into his dad's face and just be like, yeah. But he was just too tired. He's like, I'm not going all the way over there to do that. Wow. I mean, unbelievable.
Stay up to date all year on the LA Dodgers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Dodgers on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Coming up, Victor Wembanyama is going to carry the Spurs into the playoffs. French phenom Victor Wembanyama is already off to an insane start. It's simply not human what he's doing in just 3 games so far this season. Locked On Spurs host Jeff Garcia and Matt Guzman discuss just how far Wemby can carry the Spurs into the postseason.
We all knew that he was coming in with this focused Shaolin monk training video, and Dream Olajuwon talking about how he trained with them. So he came in ready to go, and it showed, at least in 1 game. We'll see if it extends throughout the entire season. But Matt, I think Victor and his new and improved shoulders, bigger and stronger, I think he can carry them pretty far in the regular season. I don't know about beyond, but we'll get to that in a bit. Again, not to say this team cannot make the postseason. I'm making that very clear. I'm just talking about Victor Wembanyama by himself right now. I think he can do a lot in the regular season. We'll get to his supporting cast a bit, and I think he can get them to a respectable record, maybe break what Vegas has projected for them, about 44, 45 wins. My fear, though, Matt, is that he might get gassed when it counts, and that's towards the end of the season, where maybe playoff positioning or play-in positioning is at stake. That's where I stand on how far he can take them. I think he can take a pretty good record heading into a play-in postseason, but my fear is that he's going to gas, man. What do you think?
I think that's fair. It's a fair assessment, and I think that that's also not exclusive to Victor. I think that goes for just about any star who, obviously you have those teams where they've got 2 or 3 guys that are solidly at the front. Mm-hmm. It's not one person that's really above the rest. The Spurs are still in that zone where, especially after that first game, it was very, very clear that Victor at his max, at his best, has the potential to be one of the best players in the league. So naturally, he's going to be the best player on his team by a long shot, honestly. And so, that kind of goes without saying, is that obviously he's going to have to keep that up if the Spurs want to keep winning. It was a very positive, you saw what he could do against Dallas. You saw what he could do against New Orleans, who was missing Kevon Looney. And so that kind of goes, I think it's going to be a night by night basis just figuring out how teams are going to guard him. And I think Mitch spoke on that a little bit too, was, he's going to have to face a lot of different schemes and game plans, personnel. So it's going to be on him to have patience and learn what works best, and honestly conserve his energy on nights where maybe he doesn't need to score 40. I think that for him is to recognize when his teammates can shine a little bit more.
Yeah, I actually think too that we're going to see maybe some low management games, not immediately right now, but soon, maybe on back-to-back nights on the road, perhaps, because you need to save him for when it matters. Right? Again, we'll get to the supporting cast in just a few minutes, but I think Victor alone can help this team either win a close game or just blow out a team we saw versus Dallas. Here's the thing, though, Matt. With Victor, I think he set the bar high in that opening night game, that opening game in Dallas. So the bar is already up here. I don't think he will. I think the coaching staff will definitely remind him that he doesn't have to do that every game. It'd be nice. It'd be great. I think Spurs fans expect another 40-15-0 turnover night moving forward. That's probably not going to happen, but he's going to have more often than not those kind of games. So I think right away, just a PSA to Spurs fans, he's going to give you consistent about 20 and 10 every night. But these 40 games, 30 games, crazy dunks, all that stuff, they'll be more common than not. I think the thing is with Victor, Matt, and you heard him say this in the press conferences with us, he likes to get his teammates involved. He likes to see them succeed. So I think the pressure for Victor is not as high or not as bearing down on him because of his supporting cast. Again, in a few minutes, what do you think?
Absolutely. And that was one of the biggest talking points of the offseason was this is no longer just Victor Wembanyama against the world. We've seen him play with guys like Zach Collins, who on paper looked good and just didn't fill the role that maybe he liked. We saw, a year with him and Jeremy Sohan at point guard. And so this team is a lot more complete on the margins, as far as bench depth goes, but it's also a lot more complete in the starting group. Now you have a guy like De'Aaron Fox and Steph Castle and Dylan Harper to run the point guard. You still have guys like Harrison Barnes and Julian Champagny who are hitting 3-pointers. You have guys like Luke Cornett, who they brought in over the offseason. Obviously, Kelly Olynyk has yet to play, but they added depth at the front court next to Victor Wembanyama. And so I think all of that combined is just going to make it a lot easier for Victor, to have games like we saw in the opening night, but also have games where, like I said a second ago, he doesn't have to score 40. Maybe he scores 20 and 10, but the Spurs are still great because he has 5 assists and Dylan Harper has 5 assists and Castle has 6 assists. There's a lot more room for sharing the wealth with this roster. And I think that's a huge, huge piece. And honestly, it's been talked about a lot, but it still might be not talked about enough. Just how much better this Spurs team is going to be because of the supporting cast that they put around Victor.
The problem for the Spurs is one player is not enough. That's why they went and got De'Aaron Fox. It's why they made a move to get a running mate for Wemby. There's some nice young players on this Spurs team, but that's all they are right now. And so we've seen Giannis, Luka, and a cavalcade of transcendent superstars over the years be unable to crack these super teams. Oklahoma City is still unbelievable. Nikola Jokic is still at the peak of his powers, and this may be the most talented Nuggets team he's ever had. The West is just going to be a gauntlet. So sure, Victor Wembanyama is playing outside of his mind, doing things we've legitimately never seen on a basketball court. But it's going to test the theory of how far one player can take you, or some of these young players are ready sooner than we think, and all of a sudden, the Spurs are the super team. And finally, another in a long line of accomplishments for Sidney Crosby. He became the 9th player in NHL history to register 1,700 career points and becomes the 4th fastest player to reach that number. Crosby is only the 4th player to score 17 points with one team. The player he passed, another Penguins great, Jaromir Jagr. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, what do the Dodgers have to offer in Game 4? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.